What is up, PU gamers? It's Megazard back with Untier Talk, as well as my co-host, the lovely Hajad.
Was
Yes, what is up indeed? Wise words. And we also have a guest. I don't necessarily want to use the word special. Hi, TJ.
What's up, guys?
Yeah, he's special.
Anyway.
Not that special, the other special.
Anyway, we got a lot to get to today. For the most part, PUPL has been entirely, that's been enough for one podcast. But in addition to that, we have new tier shifts and council votes and all that. So we got us council members here, and we have TJ's non-council opinion. We're just going to very briefly, not too long, hit upon the Omastar not ban, the Aromatisse quick ban, and then the other drops. So Aromatisse, not much to say there. I think pretty much everyone accepted that it's pretty gosh darn broken. Trick Room, Nasty Plot, Moonblast, doesn't even matter what your fourth move is. You basically just win the game. Well, okay. Definitely best fourth move was Hidden Power Ground, but still, just absolutely ridiculous Trick Room Sweeper. No reason to keep that in the meta at all.
Facts. Simple.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. But Omastar, so that was not banned, but Hajad was one of the few people who actually did want to quick ban it, so if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so my thing with Omastar is that I thought out of all of the things in PU, if you think about them all as different Pokemon, I guess, Omastar had one of the highest potentials to be or in a game where it could be one of those changing Pokemon that changed the course of a match. It, in my opinion, it simulated or was very close to how Archeops played. Not in the fact that it's similar in any way, but more so that if it gets an opportunity to do work, or maybe under the right circumstances, it will do work. And in my opinion, with a couple of its sets, including Weak Armor, I felt like preparing for it would have been a bit of a too hard of a hit to take for the tier, because at that point you're just saying half the Scarfers, you can't really use them anymore, unless you want to be super weak to Omastar or have a switch in, a 100%, switching in that way. So in my opinion, I thought it would walk the tier a bit too much for just a drop coming into the tier.
I think that was TJ trying to communicate in Morse code. Do you want to say something about Omastar?
I was gonna say that I think Omastar is a bit more manageable, and I can see why it wasn't banned, because we have stuff like Lock Punch from Grater and Hitmonchan coming around, and Poliwrath backing wave. So it's definitely not that hard to check, because it is kind of slow too, because we have Scarfers Togedemaru and Primate that are able to outspeed. And the thing with Omastar is it doesn't have priority like Caracosta, so it's harder to revenge kill those mons.
Yeah, so the reason why I was a bit on the fence, I guess, or close to what TJ said, is that we do have quite a few switch-ins, but in my opinion, those switch-ins, I could never see a Hitmonchan be a switch-in for Omastar. I don't think it works like that, because stuff like Chopper Berry, stuff like Water Z, Weak Armor as well. So if you mark the Hitmonchan, you have to basically revenge kill it again, or revenge kill Omastar again via a different priority, because you won't be able to outspeed it at +4. That's just too much to ask for something in the tier. So that's where I was sort of we have Poliwrath. That's pretty safe as 100% switch in, but I don't really see much outside of that, or maybe Hitmonchan, if you no 100% it is not, or Trim Z, that you would that Omastar would be scared of, per se. I think the main argument against it is just how hard it is to set it up.
Well, No, let me say, as someone who voted to not ban it, I don't disagree with that. I don't agree. That wasn't why I chose that. And also on Polyrath being 100% switch in, I was running Z Hyperbeam briefly, so I don't know that that's the perfect counter. I did expect more Polyrath, didn't really see that many, but still Z Hyperbeam can do the trick. And for me, the thing with Omastar is that, yeah, it has a lot of potential. Uh, we haven't necessarily messed around as much with random Z move tech and weak armor and swift swim and all kinds of random things. But to me, what a quick ban says is that we need it out of our tours, we need it out of our tier right now. There's not even point suspecting it. It's going to be, well, too much of a problem to have in PUPL and seasonal, and I don't think it's going to be that kind of mon that ruins PUPL. There's potential to mess with it, but it's not quite that crazy. There's enough you can do with the scarfers and the priority and it having a hard time setting up that it'll be a very good mon. I think it'll absolutely be very relevant, but centralization is also a lot harder to quick ban for, because if something's a bit centralizing in that it changes the scarfers, to quick ban, you're essentially saying, like, yeah, we can already tell that the meta is going to be too centralized by it. And I think that's too hard to say, because the scarfers, it basically stops you from using like Mesprit and Kabutops, and obviously the scarfers that aren't really scarfers, like Aurorus and Abomus, no. But all the other ones check Omastar. And yeah, overall, I couldn't really justify saying this is going to be that much of an immediate problem. So for me, that's kind of like the middle ground, just not quite worth removing at the moment.
Yeah.
But on the good side, it's definitely not a problem. All the other drops, I think we got some really cool, very exciting stuff. Especially Frostlass is just like, there's already like so much weird Frostlass tech that I'm very much looking forward to see what people can pop out with it in PUPL.
Yeah, and I also, in my opinion, one of the best PU metas in this generation was the pre-exhibition PU meta where we had Quillfish as well. So
early exhibition, it was there for the first couple weeks.
Oh yeah. So like maybe a couple weeks into exhibition, and then we got like the Spiritomb drop, and then Quillfish rose, and Hell descended from there. But like, yeah, like that meta, in my opinion, was the best. And seeing Quillfish come back is sort of like, yeah, this was a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got Quillfish. We also got Altaria, which I think is always enjoyable as long as it's not too fat and busted. And I don't think it will. I think a lot of things in the meta have like enough coverage for it, but it still checks like a bunch of things that you'd want checked, especially Scyther, which is looking very strong.
Yeah, Altaria kind of makes Stall viable again. I mean, Stall had a really hard time functioning with all the difficulty, I guess you could say, in removing hazards. Like, Stall was basically pushed into using Articuno plus Skuntank, and that doesn't really, that hazards defog combination isn't the best, let's say. Like, you end up losing stuff like Regirock or yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things.
TJ, you wanted to say something?
I wish Ontario was legal in the PPL Week 4, because I think if I had Ontario over Skunk, like in the team that I brought, I definitely would have like a better shot. Like you said, like that core is just not very good. The Skunk plus Articuno, it's just not very good. Really weak to Regirock. It's pressured a ton. So I'm glad lost back, since it's a really like it's one of our like better reliable defogging teams.
For sure. So yeah, all looks fun. Quillfish looks fun. Frostlass, very hard to know how it's going to turn out. And you got that Scyther, I think, is going to be just a very strong mon. It's always one that has a lot of different sets and techs you can try, and obviously like a mon that has a fat that can you just U-turn out of so many of its counters for a solid amount of chip. Obviously hazards being the one big thing against it, but other than that, Scyther's just like never really been bad in any PU or NU meta it's ever been in.
Yeah, I'd say Scyther is going to be up there. The one thing it does have going against it is our lack of quotation marks as its control. That's going to be the one like huge detriment, especially because it pairs so well with spikes. And if you want to maintain spikes, you can't use defog. So like it would be very hard to make a spikes balanced team that had a defogger and had a spinner and like kept Scyther happy as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how it adapts, or how teams adapt, especially around it in this meta.
Yeah, and our one spinner is definitely going to look for having some problems with Frostlass. It definitely annoys Hitmonchan a bit, so that makes that kind of removable.
Metric Duntron of like ghost types that we can use. We have like Spiritomb, Frostlass, Sableye. I'm missing some Oricoro Sensu. Like
Haunter,
we
and
have
Mischievous.
We have so much stuff to like switch into Hitmonchan. It's basically pointless at this point. Like if you're using only Hitmonchan, I think you're happy if rocks go up and like no spikes go up. Like at that point.
Yeah. All right, so that was a solid, like 12 minutes on all the drops and stuff, which I think is really all we can give it. People were still just very busy experimenting with the old PU meta, but before we move into the new PU meta, time to talk about PUPL Week 4, kind of just the big week in terms of seeing where teams are going to end up in finals. Are the Marowaks going to keep their first place? Between the Dedens and the Drampas, which one is going to pull ahead, or are they going to keep neck and neck? Will the Mischievous's be able to get back into it, or are they going to get stuffed out? Will the Blossoms be able to do anything at all? Lots of questions here.
Mm-hmm.
So just going briefly over the results. We had the Marowaks with a very strong win over the Pikachus. They're going into a very solid first place, and as long as they tie, even maybe if they lose, as long as it's a close loss and depending on other results, they will be in finals. We had the Drampas picking up a win over the Dedens. So I believe if we win or tie, we're automatically in. But if we lose, it would take some like weird trickery for us to still get into finals. The Dedens taking that hard loss, but if they win and either the Marowaks or the Drampas lose their set, because none of the Marowaks, Drampas, or Dedens are playing each other, then the Dedens still have some playoffs chances. They just need another team to lose. And then you have Boku no Pika, the Mischievous's, and the Blossoms that could in theory qualify, but would need like some crazy stuff where the top 3 teams like all lose or something, or like 2 of the top 3 teams for those guys to qualify. So that's kind of where the standings sit going into week 5, just an approximation. The Blossoms and the Mischievous is tying this week, so the Mischievous is not quite pulling ahead with those points that they needed. No, go ahead.
I just want to say that this week was super close. That's like the big thing. Like, I feel like the teams that were lagging behind kind of lagged behind a bit more than they should have. And Detonates vs. Drampas was super close series. And then the Marowaks kind of proved that they were like the team to beat, if you want to say, this PUPL.
Yeah, and I should say maybe we were talking about this beforehand, but none of the games were necessarily like super highlight games. I don't know that any of the individual games were necessarily like as crazy or must see or that close. But the week overall, very down to the wire. The last series finishing, soon to the deadline, like very late on Sunday. With the last game being deciding whether it would be a win or a tie between the Drampas and the Dedens. So a very exciting week to be around, even if, like I said, not necessarily super highlight games individually.
Yep.
So do you want to talk about any of the upsets that happened? Because even if they weren't big games, we definitely had a couple upsets that are worth talking about.
I don't know if you can call it an upset, but Real losing to you was an upset of sorts.
An upsetting game, maybe?
It was very much so an upsetting game for me. Yeah, we had me and my team, our player Real, we had an exceptional matchup. We can say versus.
Oh yeah, the team I brought was not at all expecting the kind of thing he brought, and I absolutely just was devastated seeing that matchup. But instead, Real just played very confusingly and did not win.
Yeah. They summed it up well in PMs. It was Physical Spam versus Regirock, Bold Tangela, and Agron.
Yeah,
Really
physical. I brought a physical spam team with Zemir Move Murkrow, Sword Sand Silvally Dragon, and Choice Band Caracosta. And that core did a lot of work in testing. I think physical spam very cool. But when you face Impish Regirock and Max Defense Tangela and an Aggron for good measure, that was like... I'm still not sure how I won. I think that definitely is a tie for the worst game of the week. The other one being the upset of CB Aaron Judge defeating FLCL because FLCL brought 2 illegal Mons to Black-White. Just...
Yeah. Not much to say about that, really. Going back to your game, I would just like to add that the Skuntank was Rocky Helmet as well. I don't know if that was revealed, so that's even more.
I don't think it was. I think it switched into Electros moves like 3 times and just died to special stuff. So yeah, that's even worse. Helmet Skuntank just chipping down at stuff. Oh no, I think actually Costa might have killed it because I had to Healing Wish it after Aftermath and Helmet and stuff. So maybe anyway, yeah, that was definitely an upsetting game. But more in terms of upsets, I was thinking of talking about there was the FLCL versus CB Aaron Judge, which is like very hard to talk about. We also saw Pepe taking out Lord ST. Not necessarily a huge upset, but I would still call it one. And we had Trash taking out Drud. Ironically, the Trash not being taken out this week. So, TJ, as the DPP player among us, neither Hajed nor I can speak much to the gen. What did you think about Trash not just beating Drud, but beating Drud with a crazy Trick Room team that involved, I believe, a Sash Abra lead, an Energy Ball Stantler. I don't even remember what else.
Yeah, that was a Marowak, I'm pretty sure.
Well, Marowak's standard for DPP Trick Room, but yeah.
It was definitely an interesting pick. I was actually talking to Akira and Bex like after the game. Like, I think the Trick Room, like, he was just going for matchup or something because like Trick Room, like, it really isn't that good in DPP. Like, you really wouldn't bring it. So I think, like, I'm not really sure why he had the Sash lead Gassy either. Like, I was definitely weird, but I guess it worked out.
I've actually seen that tech in DPP NU Trick Room. I think Sash lead Haunter with Trick Room. It does work as a Trick Room setter. It's like a suicide thing there, so it's not totally out of nowhere. I've seen Sash Haunter Trick Room stuff.
Yeah, it's just interesting for DPP because like Ghastly's really not a common Pokemon that you see. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Touching on the what's it called? Hold on, give me a second. Just one sec.
Okay, well, in the meantime, the other upset, Pepe versus Lord ST, I don't know that there's a ton to say there either. The game was kind of weird. Jad, I don't know if you remember what happened in the game, but it was another one where we saw a lot of hail stuff this week, and Pepe ended up using what looked like a very familiar team. I'm not sure if he's used it before, but it was like Hale plus Kingler, and Lord ST just didn't really have very much for Kingler at all, and ended up sacking his Specs Lilligant very, very early. I was very happy to see the Specs Lilligant, but it definitely wasn't a great matchup. He didn't have very much for Hale. But when Sandslash got weakened very early, I thought, well, at least Specs Lilligant might be able to do something. But once that went down, Pepe just kind of ended up winning fairly easily due to Lord ST's Kingler switch in being like, well, a Specs Lilligant, not exactly a great tank by any means.
Yeah. I was joking with him in private message after the battle. I said, "Why did you bring mono lose? Like you don't have a water resist, you don't have a fire resist. Like what is this?" And he was like, "Lol." I think his team just kind of depends a lot on Type Null to be his fire, ice, special, just in general switching, and Mudsdale to be the other like physical switching.
Yeah, and I just don't think that's that effective. Like, Type Null's good, but it just can't be your everything stop, especially when it's mono return.
Yeah, no, it's mono return, and it's not that. It's reliant completely on like rest talk. So you just force it into rest, and then you like sleep talk rolls may end up rolling in your favor. And even if it does roll in LST's favor, like what's the worst that can happen? A return? Like, yeah.
So TJ, did you find your Trick Room thing that you were thinking of?
Yeah, but I wanted to touch on the LST game. So I was testing with LST this week, and like the tech, he has a tech, and I think it was punishment type of null. Said it was
punishment like, what? You're still very hard to make out.
It was punishment type null, I believe, and it was for like bulky sensu or something like that.
So I mean, that is pretty interesting. Kind of unfortunate. Pepe didn't bring any ghosts or anything. It was just all, not stuff that would be really useful versus. But I can see that. That's kind of interesting. So I guess it was SD rests return punishment.
Yeah, and I was also talking to him about. He was actually kind of upset. He was like, this guy didn't really prep because, like, if he did, he'd notice that I always had something for Hell, and he was kind of mad that, like, Pepe brought this, like, standard healthy and had nothing for it. So.
Yeah, it was definitely a weird pick, but kind of a lot of what Pepe does is he stays unexpected, and he stays unexpected. Like, the last thing I would necessarily expect is just like the standard Hale to pick up such a good matchup for LST, and Pepe tends to pick up a lot of games on just straight up matchups. So, yeah.
Yeah. And like we saw that from I think it was week 2 when he brought like this weird like Smeargle hyper offense.
Well, I believe that lost, didn't it, versus Sam IM?
So yeah, I guess going for matchup. Not really sure. Didn't really seem like a Pepe team anyway.
Yeah, he's just staying different.
Yeah.
Anyway, Trick Room. What did you find?
So I just wanted to find the replay, and I was like, this game was like pretty interesting. Akira's like that licky. I mean, that muck should have been a licky. And I kind of agree with him, like, cause like I think it was choice banded muck with explosion, which is like 80 to Matang. So I think Trash's team would have been a bit more standard if it was licky. The Stantler, I don't know what to say about Stantler. Like, it doesn't really make that much sense.
Oh, he also had Clamperl. That was the last mon that was weird. Sorry.
I mean, I guess like I can see why you have Clamperl, because it's like there's not really much that I could switch into Clamperl and DPC, but like Stantler was the mon that we saw in like Honko DPT meta. Like, no one uses Stantler in Akira meta, so that was definitely an interesting pick for Tricky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it also, Drud brought a Life Orb, Sludge Bomb, Giga Drain, Golbat, like Life Orb special. That's not something I've seen spectating the meta. I don't know if that's necessarily much of a thing.
Go. All right. So nasty. It's nasty plot special with.
Oh, right, it gets Nasty Plot. Never mind, that makes sense. I'm just.
Yeah, it's not. It's not something standard, but like it's definitely something that I guess interesting. Unfortunate stuff. It just wasn't strong enough to break that middle lap.
Yeah, I think if Giga Drain was a little stronger, then he would have won.
Yeah, I think he would have won if he got the knockout there.
Okay, so from the upsets, I guess we should probably move into the highlight game before talking about individually interesting sets. And the one that we picked out was Lax versus Kingler 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Kind of polar opposites here in that Lax went in 0-3 and Kingler went in 3-0, looking to stay 4-0. But it was Lax that kind of brought a well, they both brought Pyroar offenses. With Lax's interesting Mon being a Manectric, not something we've seen a ton of, but Kingler kind of bringing a lot of standard stuff, necessarily not with many electric immunities, so I can see why he would want that. Meanwhile, Kingler's weird Mon was a Walrein, which didn't. I believe it came in and just died to Stone Edge, which is just like I don't really know what to think about Walrein. Especially when it ended up versus Rock Spam, Taunt, Rocks, Aggron, plus Swords Dance, Kabutops. So definitely not the matchup for it.
It was Scarf Kabutops.
Oh, was it Scarf Cup? Yeah, it was Scarf Cop.
Yeah.
So definitely not the matchup for it. Oh, and there was a Tangela, which was offensive with Leaf Storm, so even more not the matchup for it. But
the Walrein, interesting pick. I assume it's there for like Auroras, I guess.
Yeah, it's got to be an Auroras tech, but like he had Clefairy, Regirock, and that's
Something I found interesting about the Clef was it took like 82 from Aggron's Head Smash, so I'm not sure if that's like the normal damage, but it might have been a defensive Clef, all we know, because it did have T-Wing. But I might be wrong.
Let me see.
Yeah,
Aggron was not choice banned. So if we see how much it does to Spadef Clef, max attack Adamant Aggron Head Smash without a choice ban, no boosting on him, does 82 minimum. And he very well might have been Jolly for that set, which does 75 to 88. So it wasn't Fizdef Clef. Fizdef Clef.
Yeah, that's fair.
Fizdef Clef would only be the set if this was like Adamant Stone Plate. Does that do enough? No, that doesn't even do enough. So no, it was still Spadef Clef.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting with the Walrein. Because like obviously Clef can
Yeah. To give insight into this, I was also messing about with Walrein earlier in the week. Basically because I like random assault vests, and I thought I could do something with a random assault vest on Walrein. So my set was like Surf, Frost Breath, Ice Beam, Iron Tail. It was really bad for the most part, as you would probably expect, but that might have been what Kingdom may have been trying to go with. We have no idea, like, unless we find some, like, Horn, we ask Horn, like, what was that team? I doubt we'll find out what that set was.
So just to give a brief rundown of the game, there were definitely just, like, interesting texts back and forth. Kingler having the Drain Punch Regirock, which stopped Aggron from really doing much to it. Another weird tech that definitely helps him even more versus Auroras, making the Walrein a little bit weirder. Then Lax revealing the offensive Leaf Storm Tangela to take out the Regirock fairly early. Then you have the reveal of Scarf Kabu doing some work. And in the end, after this very close, very tight game, what it came down to pretty much is Lax had a Protect Pyroar, Protect Firium Z, Protect Normalium Z, which is definitely just kind of like out of nowhere. I've seen people run Toxic Protect, but I don't think the Pyroar was the one running Toxic. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was Toxic Tangela. And the Pyroar wasn't the one who used Toxic, but being able to protect versus the Hitmonchan was actually the turn he needed to stall it out. Because if he hadn't, the Hitmonchan would have killed him with Mach Punch, and then either been faster than Aggron or Drain Punched it, or been able to get off the chip on Manectric for Scarf Mesprit to KO it, because it wasn't Scarf Manectric, it was a Specs or something. So it was Protect Pyro, I think, winning the game for him, which was definitely just interesting. Not even Toxic Protect. I'm not sure what the idea was there. Maybe it was Toxic after all, or Wisp or something, but that definitely kind of sealed it for me as being like a very out there game.
Pretty much. I mean, I think it would make sense for the Pyro to just be like Toxic Protect, Dual Stab, rather than just, random Protect on a Pyro with HP Grass. I'm pretty sure it would have been Toxic.
Yeah, that's what I would expect. Again, TJ, stop slapping your mic. It actually sounds like you're running it down like a dish rack or something.
Yeah, like a cheese.
Yeah, or a cheese grater or something. Is this the legend of the cheese grater, Mike?
This is the legend of the cheese grater.
Okay, now you're just doing it for show. All right, let's move on then. Away from the cheese grater. Do you want to talk about any of the we typed out all of the interesting sets and stuff that showed up? So are there any you want to talk about in particular that you find interesting, being the guest?
Yeah, just give me a second. I guess I'll talk about the DPP game. I think it was Tony versus Facebook, and he actually brought Rest Talk to Bite.
Yeah, Haseup was the one who brought Rest Talk to Bite. Yeah.
Yeah, which is something that you don't really ever see. I'm glad he brought, and I think it makes sense on like that kind of theme, because like I guess Kabite's sweet, and then like if he gets like I think all right, hold on. Tony had like a really weird muck set. It was Protect Toxic or something like that. So like if Tony did go for the Toxic, then like Kabite could obviously just always switch in and like just rest it off. So I thought that was a pretty cool tech. In general, it sounds pretty cool since Kabite doesn't have any reliable recovery. Yeah, unfortunately, got a little unlucky with the Sleep Fox versus Missy. I think if he would have got like Toxic off instead of like EQ, he would have been in like a better situation, if that makes sense.
It was Outrage. I can confirm that the last one was Outrage.
Oh, interesting. That's not at all what I would have expected, but that's pretty cool, actually. I was thinking maybe Roar because he had spikes.
Yeah, Roar on that kind of team probably was, I think, made more sense. But like,
whoa, okay.
That's Outrage off. That would have been pretty good for him.
Yeah, no, but if you Outrage, that's basically giving rocks to Metak, so he didn't want to do that. He said he, like, after the game, like, he really wished, because he changed before, he was like Declaw, he was like teetering on the edge between Declaw and Outrage, so, having either of those would have, or having Declaw especially, would have made for much better viewing versus the Mischievous.
Yeah, so that was a cool one. I think to me the most interesting tech would have been what Ryza did. He brought Bulk Up Throw plus Sub Bulk Up Poliwrath, with the latter being the random set, but even just the core in general, as like a counter team towards Robert Alphonse, tending to bring a lot of like interesting balance stuff. You saw the Bulk Up Throw not being able to break through a Crow Tomb, But then once sub bulk up Polyrath got in, it actually. Oh no, I'm sorry. It was also sub bulk up throw, sub bulk up throw, sub bulk up Polyrath. The throw got intimidated by Mawile. Its attack was brought down to 0, and then Crow Tomb set up on it. But then sub bulk up Polyrath came and actually just won the game, and that to me was just a very fascinating like breaker core. I can't imagine a lot of people being weak to sub bulk up Polyrath, but specifically what Robert Alphonse brought was very weak to it. It was Waterfall low sweep too, just very fascinating. Like so many people I just don't think would be weak to it, but it absolutely just 6-0'd what Robert Alphonse brought no contest, which is just very whack.
Yeah, throw plus poly is something that definitely seems like unorthodox in general. Like, I don't think I'd ever stack those two together on a team. So I think he was going for the counter team, like you said, and I guess
it was hugely successful.
Yeah, I mean, it was super weird because that game was just like so many different emotions mixed into one game. Like you had Robert Alphonse get off to a poor start, then stabilize and take the lead, and then you lost to that Polyrath in the middle. Because otherwise, if it was just a standard Polyrath with like, let's say, Subtoxic or whatever, a special Polyrath or something like that, which tend to be like more popular, he would have just straight lost to the Crow Team. Like Crow Team was going to win that game. So it had to be like a physical, or some type of physical set in order to like.
Or at least Encore, I would say.
Yeah, at least Encore, but there was no indication like that it should have been sub bulk up. Like some teams you can sort of tell maybe if they have hazards, but you didn't really see that on Rise's team. You didn't see a Pharisee, so that was an odd selection to have like a non physical, or to have a physical Polyrath on that type of team.
Yeah. So speaking of just absolutely crazy nonsensical things, Hajad's microphone. I mean, Hajad making Jerry use Assault Vest Rampardos.
Yes.
Okay, Hajad, your microphones. I thought you said you were doing that intentionally beforehand.
Yeah, it should be intentional.
Oh, okay.
It might have just been because I was cutting it off. I was moving a little bit.
All right. Anyway, Assault Vest Rampardos, another thing that like basically was the random out of nowhere set that I think absolutely clutched a game that otherwise might not have been looking too good. Do you want to talk about what inspired you to use specially defensive Assault Vest Rampardos?
To win games. That inspired me quite a lot. Generally, I feel like the tier doesn't have too much counterplay for Pyro. So, just as last week when when our team was very like heavily used, highly used of like Assault Vest Crobominable for like a hard check to Auroras, we did basically the same thing but with Assault Vest Rampardos. So the key like difference between those two is that Rampardos obviously switches in hard on Pyro. That's pretty important, I feel, because like Pyro in general doesn't really have too many offensive switch-ins. Like there's not much you can name in the tier that you can say, yeah, that's a pretty good offensive switch-in right there. So having Rampardos there just to like, it doesn't get 2 KO'd by a Specs HP Grass. So even if you want to click that, it's not an option to 2 KO at least. And also on a pursuit, you basically kill the Pyro if you get like a stealth rock damage off on it. So it was really useful in that aspect. But the other aspect that I thought was quite cool was that it also gives you some offensive counterplay versus Oricorio Sensu, which obviously has been like really popular in the tier. So it generally, that Pokemon cores really well with the other Assault Vest on the team, Assault Vest Hitmonchan, which could easier spin versus Sensu than previously intended.
Yeah, and honestly, the entire team composition is very interesting too. It was Hale with the AV Rampardos, which obviously Hale definitely wants some fire checks, and also Hale with the Gorgeist Super. Pokemon which is reliant on Synthesis, a move which does not do very well in Hail, but like very much needed for the fighting check of the team. And overall, some very weird stuff. And I think when we got into it, if the Rampardos wasn't AV, if it was just like Life Orb Rampardos or whatever, I think Calm Mind Mesprit would have clutched out the game. But instead, we just saw it being incredibly important for that surprise factor and basically winning the game. So you know what? It did a thing. Assault Vest Rampardos. It has done a thing.
Yeah, just as a prelude, it should have done more things. It should have killed the Mesprit. It should have won. We won it, but we got some max rolls against us. So
that was true. It didn't even matter, but we did max roll it. On the flip side, you bring AV Rampardos versus us. What we brought versus you with Kushalos versus yourself was a max special attack, max speed, offensive expert belt wheezing. Which is legit. I thought it was going to be so dumb. I thought it was going to be like, let's try offensive wheezing. It has more attack than special attack. It turned out to be like one of the most fun things I've used in a while. Wheezing plus Pyroar, with the Wheezing being T-Spikes, absolutely fun way to just break down Regirocks for Pyroar to do some work. T-Spikes, never a bad thing to have. It's also max speed hidden power fighting, outspeeds Modest Specs Aurorus, and bops it after Stealth Rock. Thunderbolt was also an option too, which will KO Fat Sensu. If it switches in with Rocks Up, it'll just die to the Thunderbolt. Or with just a little bit of chip, it does like 70-something to 80-something. So, like, really, honestly, I want to say it's stupid. It's just a legitimately fun Pokemon that also gets by just by dint of having, like, really dumb matchups sometimes. Because a lot of your special walls are like, Regirock, you want to break that down. Sludge Bomb, poison it, spam some moves, bam, Regirock's weakened. That's what the team wants with Pyro and pretty much everything else. Like, it just does very well versus a lot of specially defensive things like AV Hitmonchan and Clefairy, and it hits Ferroseed, and it can hit Gastrodon if you're on Hidden Power Grass. And, like, versus your team, it had a pretty good matchup overall where you had a Lurantis and an AV Crabominable, which doesn't do the greatest versus it, and I don't remember the rest of the team, but offensive wheezing is weirdly cool.
Yeah, I was especially surprised because when I saw the Squanna be like Scarf, like how he switched it into the Pyro, for example, like it immediately was giveaway, like this is a Scarf Squanna.
Yeah.
But that made me like think that, or more so think that the wheezing should have been more physically defensive immediately, because like it's your switching for Grater, for example. Like you're not going to switch a physically biased Swanna into a Grater, and you don't want to be switching in like an offensive wheezing into a Grater either. So that sort of aspect of the team really sort of confused me. Other than that, like the game came down to like 5% Grater versus a Regirock and getting a good roll with Mud Punch. So
yeah, that game was just absolutely a nutty finish. I think Kushalos played it very well to get to a very strong position. And then from there, sacked Pyroar and switched Grater into Scarf Mesprit Psychic. And then that 13% Grater, after Psychic did 87%, ended up winning by bulking up versus a Regirock and getting a roll that was like very slightly in Kushalos' favor. Like not by much at all. It was like a 50-something% roll to KO versus Mesprit to end up clutching out the game. Just an absolutely preposterous end. When I think overall the matchup was very good. Just simply having the T-Spikes versus a very T-Spikes weak team was almost did more work than offensive wheezing itself. Although obviously it got rid of the Lurantis, which was definitely annoying for the team.
Something else I want to point out is that the psychic roll that I had on the Grater was very low. Like it was 85 to 100 on the the spectrum, I guess you could call it, and I got like 87, I think.
Yeah,
or something like that, and that didn't really help when you're factoring in Regirock rolls. With Drain Punch does like 10 to 12, so it's or at least I thought it was going to do 10 to 12. It turned out to be a bit more physically defensive than I thought. Um, but yeah, that game was in general was just like really small techs in Pokemon becoming really clutch.
Yeah, actually, I guess I can say a little bit about this. I've always preferred of the Girder sets. There are two. There's the main one is like max HP. It's like 64 defense and then 192 attack adamant, just to deal damage. With the 64 defense, just being the just barely the amount you need to avoid the 2-hit KO from Kangaskhan's Silk Scarf Double Edge after rocks. And I've always found much more fat Girder with 204 defense and only like 48 attack. I have always preferred that set. Girder does not need the damage output. If it does what it's going to do offensively. If it's going to win with bulk up, it's going to win with bulk up. But defensively, just that extra bulk lets you do things like switch into Stoutland and not get 2-hit KO'd. Things like that. You can even live Jinx Psyshocks and Psyshocks from Mesprit, which is kind of funny. But I always found fatter Girder to be a much better set. It's kind of more tangential to the game in PUPL as a whole. Just a little bit of a hot tip from the PUTL. Try your Girders a little bit fatter, a little bit fatter.
It almost messed you up because of the roll on Regirock.
It did, but at the same time, if we had more attack, we couldn't have bulked up. Drain Punch would have done too much. So
it's like a catch-22, I guess. You could look at it like that.
Yeah. Okay, so other sets. We wrote this all down over here. Other sets. Yogi brought Pivot Alolan Persian with the parting shot and the foul play and whatever, but he was running Hypnosis on it. Just a very small thing, but actually did a decent bit of work in his game, and I can definitely see why. Like, it's the kind of mon that can often force a switch, and if you want to throw out 2 fast Hypnosises, the odds that you'll put asleep their, I think it was Auroras in that game or something. Like, I can actually kind of respect that.
Yeah, I mean, like with Yogi, I was talking to him about, like, why was he using Hypnosis? And he was just like, just because, like, what else am I going to use in that slot? And I'm like, yeah, fair enough then. What else are you going to use?
Toxic Taunt, whatever, but...
Yeah, Yogi actually gave me his team, like, kind of, like, randomly. He was like, this team's either going to, like, tilt this, or it's just going to, like, straight up win. And it ended up straight up winning it. Another cool effect that he had on Persian that you don't really see is Switcheroo. I'm guessing it's for like, like crippling those classes.
So what was the item on it? If it was Switcheroo,
Black Glasses.
Black Glasses, interesting. So it wasn't Z Move Persian. I didn't double check what the Z Move user was.
Flyinium Pom Pom.
Oh, Flyinium Pom Pom. Okay. Sorry, at this point, I want to repeat what you're saying just to make sure it's... Because I don't know how this is going to come out. Anyway, other things. I brought Choice Band Caracosta, which was Hajad's boner set, like, a couple of PU metas ago. Just...
I also liked AV Caracosta for what it's worth as well.
Yeah, Band Caracosta was my partner to the Flyinium Murkrow is kind of just this random... wall breaker to kind of smack stuff around and weaken for it, and I never tried it when it was your big thing, but I can definitely see why you loved it. That was a very fun mon to just like toss out liquidations with, as long as you're not facing physically defensive Tangela. Let's see, the one other thing we had written down here is Snaga brought an absolutely ridiculous team. It was like dual screens Meowstic with a sub smash Turtonator, and had a Grand Bull, and had a Honor, and had a Z Celebrate Glaceon. And it actually would have just straight up won with screens plus sub smash Turtonator if Aerofine hadn't just dodged a Fire Blast. That was the only reason it didn't straight up just win, which I definitely felt a little bit bad for Robert Alphonse's team at that point. They've not been the most lucky. They still would have lost the week either way, but that was the weirdest pick ended up totally working, and then that Fire Blast miss was just
Yeah, I have a cool, I guess you could call it, anecdote about this team because I actually have that team in my team builder. Because there was one day where I was in lectures and I was talking to Snagger about like what team he wanted to bring for a random PU tour, and he said, "Look, bro, I have this like insane team in my head. I want you to go and build it." And he like listed those 6 Pokemon, and I said to him, "You know this is insane, right? You know this will never work." He says, "Yeah, but I'm just going to use it anyway." So that's quite cool that it sort of worked in a PUPL setting, but it didn't actually. It got unlucky.
Well, that makes it even sadder. It was like this whole journey of this team from his head to your hand, and then to fall like that. Anyway, we've basically hit all this stuff, and it's been nearly an hour. Was there any last things, TJ? Doesn't have to be PUPL, general stuff overall. You're the guest here on Untier Talk. Is there anything you'd like to talk about PU wise?
I'd like to say go Draftlers, and we're going to definitely win P.
I think he was trying to say PUPL for the people who...
Yeah, my mic's pretty bad. I was trying to say P.
it just cut out again, right? Okay. Jed, any last anything else about the games as a whole? We definitely saw a lot more hail. Did mention that. I cannot wait for I don't think hail's gonna be as dominating with this new meta with more hazards and stuff, so that'll be nice.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I built the entire of the Drampers teams, obviously, because there was a Choice Banded Caracosta and a
AV Crabominable.
AV Crabominable as well. So I just wanted to address that I built all of your teams as well.
Yeah, I don't really know how it ended up happening. We're kind of got to the point where, like, on TJ's team, I'm like, but actually AV Crabominable would make so much sense here. And he's like, but that's Jad's thing, so they're gonna know. And I'm like, no, just like do it. Like it's whatever. It's not a bad set. And then I don't know how CB Caracosta came about, but when I saw it, I was like, wouldn't it be funny if we just used all Hajad sets versus him? So, if you were real, you would have had one of your players bring Scarf Gabite to Oras instead of that double Dundee's stall, you swine.
Well, Shane the entire time he was going to bring stall.
No, I respect that mix-up, and I definitely understand why Pearl brought it, but damn, double Dundee's stall, that's crazy. That's insane. If you guys didn't see, both of Hajad's Oras slots brought Dundee's stall. Ended up going 1-1, thank God. Technically, I had a TKO using an old team as well. I think my team has been posted to forums in Gen 6 or something, but it definitely has like a decent matchup versus Dundee's stall. I made sure to include the nasty Plotmonferno tech and things like that. Anyway, I think... Nope, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm excited to see all of the AV Rampados next week.
That's going to be the new wave that catches on.
Yep.
Anyway, thank you all for listening to another very long edition. Obviously, like when you have tier shifts and PUPL, what are you going to do? After this tour, I'm sure we'll go back to those like 15-minute, we've nothing to talk about, whatevers. But yeah, for now...
That's how I end this up.
Yeah, this is the big time for PUPL. We're not in any official tours, so this is PU's the most exciting PU's going to be for a year, probably. Well, maybe not. We'll see. I certainly have a lot of plans to try to do more with PU in the future, but as PUPL goes into its final weeks, we have the big 5th week because there's enough teams still in contention. We don't know who's going to make finals. We've got the finals. We've got the seasonals. All this stuff is, stick around for the next couple of weeks. We're going to be talking all about the tier shift and what that's changing. It's going to be fun. TJ, thank you for sharing the magic of your cheese grater mic with us.
No problem.
Oh,
That's
very,
exactly
very
what I
special guest
expected.
TJ right there.
We both had the same thought. All right. Peace out, PU gamers.